Thousands of matriculants are eagerly anticipating the start of their tertiary education next week as Nelson Mandela University lectures are scheduled to begin on the 10th of February. Joining me now in studio is Nelson Mandela University spokesperson Zandile Mbabela to discuss the availability of space for late applicants. Zandile, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Womakapa TV.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you for having me.
Well, firstly, tell us which academic programs still do have space for the late applicants currently?
Well, unfortunately, our university is not accepting late applications. Our application cycle was between April and October of last year for the 2025 academic year. However, what is happening now is that those applicants who had applied to the university but did not make it into their programs of choice, the first and the second choice, have an opportunity to apply through our change of program initiative, where they can look at programs that still have spaces available and for which they qualify, and they can then apply to those. So there is a list of those programs, but it's a few programs in BCom. There's some programs in the BSc, as well as some diploma programs in forestry, game ranch management, and wood technology, for example. We can make this list available, but I'm sure you can appreciate that it's a fluid list because every day there's applications and acceptances that are going on in that regard. But unfortunately, late applications for those who had not applied at all are not accepted at the university, and I think a lot of them are being directed to the Department of Higher Education and Training's Central Application Clearinghouse that takes applications and centrally aggregates applications for the various universities in the country.
Well, are there any programs at the university that are going to be helping the learners to transition to the university life, knowing that these learners, are just coming from school and now this is a new life to them? So are there any of those programs?
Well, definitely. We've got our, quite an elaborate orientation program that's called First Year Success. And that is a program that's really aimed at equipping our new students with all that they will need to thrive in this academic journey. So the First Year Success program, or FYS as we call it, is really, it's aligned to the university strategy of, access for success. So while we widen access to higher education, we also work to ensure that we give students the necessary support towards their success. So this program is one that helps students get acquainted with the various campuses and the facilities. It helps students to learn the institutional culture of, for example, respect for diversity. It helps students to get to know the university environment or learn about the university environment, as well as things that we might take for granted, like some of the terminology that's now used in university as opposed to high school. So it's also a great opportunity for them to mingle and form social relationships with their classmates, their peers, and their lecturers and some of the staff. So there's also for First Year Success buddies or mentors, but we call them buddies, that help with the multi-phased approach to the orientation that helps and supports students throughout their academic journey.
Okay, just briefly tell us, as we know that NSFAS can be quite hectic for other learners, knowing that most learners go to the university with NSFAS. Are there any support that are given by the university to the learners who are facing difficulties in NSFAS funding?
Look, as the university, we're in constant communication with NSFAS with regards to any and all challenges that arise that affect students that are funded by the scheme. And this is really aimed at collaboratively, finding solutions to any problems that arise. But, in line with the university's being resolve, in wanting to ensure that no academically deserving but financially needy student is denied access to education due to a lack of funding. The university itself has financial concessions, which were applied following a council and management committee decision back in 2015, where we apply financial concessions to students, academically deserving and financially needy students, up to and including the missing middle. So these financial concessions are it's not funding, but it's really a relief mechanism in the form of a down payment exemption and allowing students to register while having outstanding debt. So it's really to facilitate access to academic and on-campus residence accommodation, registration to those. And once a student is then granted that financial concession upon meeting the criteria, because there's certain criteria that you have to meet,
yes.
Then they sign an acknowledgement of debt form. So there's this concerted effort to make sure that academically deserving students are not denied.
Okay, Zandile, just very briefly, we just ran out of time completely. So, but I just want to squeeze in this one last question. Is the university facing any accommodation issues? Just briefly.
No, at this stage, we don't have any accommodation shortages. I mean, the university is always tracking students' need for accommodation, and we're having open engagements with accredited off-campus accommodation providers to ensure that the supply does meet the demand for student accommodation.
Zandile, thank you so much for your time. We would love to continue this conversation, but because of time, we have to go to the ad break.
Thank you.
That was Zandile Mbabela giving us an insight on the students in the university who have given their late applicants. But now let's take a quick short break.